In this lesson, we'll add our surrounding property lines. All right, so we have our main site here. Now, an important thing we need to add to this, and to add to this story so that we could tell a better story about what our design is, where it's at, and how it's going to impact things around it, is we need to place our lots that are actually surrounding it. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is actually our front area with the porch. So what that means is we're going to have some sidewalks and a local street going this way. And just on the other side of that, we'll have some more blocks. And just to the backyard here, we'll actually have more lots as well. And there's no alleyway or any gaps there. These property lines actually touch each other here. They basically share this property line in the back. So with that in mind, let's start creating the surrounding area. Things will start to make a little more sense to you once you see this built out. So let's go ahead and add a layer, and I'm going to call this layer Surrounding Properties. I'm going to make that my current layer with the green check mark, and we'll X out of there. So now all I need to do is go to my polyline, and I'm going to assume that these lots are all the same size. Now, depending on where you live, in zoning and all that, these lots can either be exactly the same size, or they may vary a little bit. Ours are going to be the same size, but the principle of the matter is still there. We must include things that are going to happen around our site so that whoever is analyzing the site plan, as I mentioned before, will get a better understanding of the story we're trying to tell and the impact that our design can have on the surrounding area. So we're going to create our property line here. So we're going to assume 140 feet in that direction, 56 feet in that direction, 140 in that direction, and we'll close it off. So that's the exact same dimension as our other one, just for simplicity purposes. So I'm going to grab this polyline we just drew, and I'm going to go ahead and make some copies of this. So we'll copy a couple of times. So this will be for the properties just to the back. So these will actually get placed up here. So I'm going to highlight those. We'll actually move those to line up right about here with that midpoint. And now I just need to copy these two guys and drop them down as well. So we'll grab those, we'll say move. Actually, we'll copy. We'll select them, copy them, and place them accordingly. And I'm going to line up with midpoint here. So we'll kind of scroll out just a bit, make sure everything's placed nicely, and it is. So now all we need to do is place, we've got properties on both sides as well as behind. We want to show what's going on across the street. So let's grab these three lots here, 2 and 3, and I'm going to copy those. And I'm just going to kind of randomly place them down here. Now, what we need to take into account is the width of our street, and also the width of what's going on with our sidewalk or any kind of other infrastructure. So how this works is the overall dimension we're going to include for the width of the street and the sidewalks and also any kind of utilities like water or anything located in that area is going to be 64 feet. So what that means is, I'll show you exactly what that means, is we'll have 64 feet, type in 64 for the overall dimension. And what we can do is we can move this, what we just copied. So now we have the overall dimension. But this is just what goes up to the property line. So now what we need to include is the 5 feet for the sidewalk. That's going to run, just off of the property line of both sides. So I'm going to do this for both sides. So we'll go 5 feet here. But what I also want to include is the 5 feet for the grass that's actually going to be located right along the street. And that's also where we're going to have some water utilities and water lines located that will actually show and call out a little bit later. So I'm going to go 5 feet here as well. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And right now it looks like simple lines, but as we draw and evolve this thing, we're going to add curb cuts, hatching, and really bring this thing to life and make it very, very easy to read and very professional looking. So now that we have that in place, I'm going to trim out what we have here in the middle. So I'm going to select those two lines, and we'll go trim, and I'm going to cut this out. And actually, I probably should have kept those. We'll go ahead and Control Z because we're going to need to locate that center line of that street. So I'm going to draw in my center line, and then I'll get rid of that extra line work there. So now what we can do is I'm going to create another layer really quick just for a center line. So I'm going to go street center line. And this time, this will probably be the only line that I do change the line type on. I want this to, maybe be a dashed line. So we'll go in there, load, and we'll say this will be our dashed line. So I'll say OK. We'll select that and we'll bring that into our project. And I'll make that my current layer. We'll get out of there. I'm going to select this guy and make that a street center line. So now we know what the street center line is, and it looks different, so it's going to be easy to remember. But a little bit later, once we start annotating this site plan, we'll actually call out what this is. So now that we have our basic form for our streets and sidewalks and also our surrounding lots in place, we'll start really adding some details to this to bring this to life and make this look a little more realistic and better tell the story about our site. So in the next lesson, we'll start focusing our attention to working with some fencing and then maybe even some landscaping for our site. So I'll see you there.